yeah, you got to put yourself out there. You have to let people know what you do. You got to just advertise yourself or be your own little cheerleader, because that's how you get more work. And yeah, after a while, you saying yes, 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 okay, okay, okay. It is nice to say, I'm not really interested in that. Yes, I'm interested in this. And it is nice that people, if you're consistent and you're authentic and you're true, they will come to you.
Back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. My name is Rekha and I am your host. I hope you're having a great day so far as you are listening to this podcast. I want to tell every single listeners, thank you so much for choosing to listen to this podcast and this episode this week. For those of you who's new to the podcast, I want to share that this podcast, Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast, is for yoga teachers or anyone who is interested in the life of a full-time yoga teacher or somebody who is interested in becoming a full-time yoga teacher. If you want to learn a little bit more about me or what this podcast is all about, if you go take a listen to the trailer, it'll kind of explain what this podcast is about. But when I first became a yoga teacher, I kind of went straight in and became a full-time right away because I didn't really have a choice. It's either I try to make it as a full-time yoga teacher and survive, and if I didn't survive, I had to go back to my old job. So I kind of really had to, dive in and see if I can make it. So I did make it, but I had a lot of questions at the beginning of my teaching career. I wanted to know if being a full-time yoga teacher was possible. I wanted to know if there was other teacher out there who is also doing this as a full-time job. How is it possible? What are some tricks and tools that can help me to become a successful full-time yoga teacher? How many classes do I need to teach? Do I need to buy an insurance? How do I find a private clients? How do I ask for a raise? These are the questions it kept coming up for me. And I wish I had somebody I can turn to and ask questions, get tips and advice, and hear other people's journey so I can get inspired and so that I can see that it's possible. So that's why I created this podcast, so you can hear the stories and journeys of other full-time yoga teachers from across the world, how they made it work, how they made it happen, and hearing about their challenges, their pain, and also their celebration and all the good and all the challenges of being a full-time yoga teacher. And what I really want to highlight in this interview is that how everybody does it so differently and so uniquely. And I think that's the beauty of being a full-time yoga teacher, that there's no one set path that we need to follow. There's a path that you just have to create that works for you, that is in alignment with what you love and what lights you up. So that's what this podcast is about. Every week I try to highlight different full-time yoga teachers from around the world, sharing their journey and their tips and their advice. So I hope you are enjoying this podcast. And if you are, I really, really would appreciate it if you share this podcast or this episode with your friends, your yoga teacher friends, your coworkers, anybody interested in being a teacher or anybody interested in being a full-time yoga teacher. I would really appreciate it. And if you want to leave me a positive review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to, that is also going to be helpful as well. You can always message me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active, at Rekha Yoga, or you can message me on my website, rekhayoga.com, if you ever want to chat with me. I love hearing from listeners, what they are thinking, how some episode have impacted you or inspired you. So I want to give a little update on my personal life, what's been happening. Some of you who's new, I've been teaching yoga in Peru for the last 2 months. I arrived to Peru end of April to teach a yoga teacher training. I got hired by a yoga teacher training school here to teach 4 teacher trainings in 4 months. So I finished 2 trainings so far, and I am about to start the 3rd teacher training, 200-hour teacher training here in the jungle of Peru. I feel like I am getting the hang of things with my co-teachers. We are working well together, and I am also starting to really enjoy and love Peru every day that I'm here. So I'm having a great time, and I'm excited to welcome in the new group. This group is going to be quite bigger than the other two groups. So I'm kind of excited for the bigger group and how the energy or the vibe of the training might change, might be different because of the size of the group, but I'm excited about it. My mother came to visit me in Peru. We went to Arequipa together, and we did just one overnight trekking in Coca Canyon. And it was beautiful, beautiful trek. It was a lot of downhill, steep, and also steep uphill. So it was quite difficult trek, and I'm still sore from it, but I'm so glad I did it. The place was so beautiful, and it made me want to do a longer trekking. So that's definitely my goal, to do a longer trek in the future, maybe in Peru, maybe somewhere else. So this week I interviewed a teacher named Britt, and Britt was introduced to me from one of my friends. She told me that I should reach out to her and interview her on a podcast. So I did reach out to her, or maybe she reached out to me. I don't remember. So I never met her, haven't heard about her until my friend recommended that we connect. And we had this conversation in this interview. Britt lives in Maine, and she lives in a seasonal town where seasonally a lot of people come there to visit the national park, or seasonally people come visit for the summer for a few months. So she has an interesting story to share as being a full-time yoga and movement teacher, because she kind of have to do everything on her own. There aren't a lot of yoga studios where she lives, and being in a seasonal location, people come and go. So how she made her yoga business work is pretty amazing and inspiring. I really wasn't sure how where this conversation was going to go to, but I really loved how we started talking about business side of being an independent yoga teacher towards the end of this interview. So she offers a lot of great tips for a business side of being an independent yoga teacher towards the end. And I really appreciated that part of the conversation, and it kind of made me want to ask more business questions. I tend to shy away from business questions in my interview, but speaking to Britt really made me want to talk and ask more business questions. So Britt is fitness instructor, yoga instructor, health coach, adventure guide. She kind of does it all. When you go to her website, you can see tons of her certifications and experiences she have in a movement modality. And she does a lot of personal training, yoga, and she kind of combine and infuse different modality into her offering, which I think is really cool. And what's so inspiring about her is that she's kind of a go-getter. She started her own business, she's running it, and she's making it work. We can learn so much from her experience. And I'm very happy and grateful that my friend connected me to Britt, and we got to have this conversation. Britt also recommended I interview one of her teachers. So in the upcoming episodes, you will hear me interviewing her teacher who lives in LA. So it's kind of interesting how one connection can lead to the next connection and next connection. And I'm actually really enjoying having in-depth conversations with these yoga teachers that I wouldn't otherwise have. It's beautiful how we can really open up and connect in these interviews. And I feel like I have created a very long-lasting relationship with all of my interviewees. I feel like I got to know them in such a deeper personal level after this interview, and I really enjoy that. I sometimes tend to be a little bit shy in a group setting, but in this interview, I really get to kind of go deep one-on-one with somebody, which is something very magical, I think. And being able to share this kind of conversation with everyone is very heartwarming for me, and I'm very grateful and honored that I get to do this. So thank you for listening, and let's begin the interview I had with Britt. Welcome, Britt, for coming to join me on the Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm so excited that you are here with me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yay, me too. Please tell the listener, where do you live and where are you logging in from today?
I live in Bar Harbor, Maine, Katy National Park area. We're seasonal, but it's growing. All the seasons are growing. I have a company, or my business is called BH Yoga Dog. I'm an independent contractor for the island, and I'm working all over. So I'm really enjoying it.
And how long have you been practicing yoga, or when were you first introduced to yoga?
Oh my goodness, that's going to give away my age. No, I've been practicing yoga for at least 35 years. And, ebb and flow, come and go. It's always there for you. I've done different adventures, and sometimes it slid away, and sometimes it was the main practice.
And are you from Maine? Is that where you're born and raised?
I was originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And my family moved up here when I was very young and opened a retail store up here. That was a seasonal store. So in the wintertime, we would travel. I was homeschooled before homeschooling was a thing. And we would go to Ecuador and out west and Florida and a lot of different places. So, but then, I went to school here as I grew up.
Oh, so nice. And when was your first yoga class?
I can't even remember, but I can't remember my first, but I do remember taking yoga in Tucson, Arizona, when I was there for a winter. They had a spin class, and then the other side, they had yoga. And it was great. And my earliest recollections were really like Brian Kest videos. I think I found a DVD of Brian Kest, and he had 3 classes that I did over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And Rodney Yee.
Nice. When did you first felt like you wanted to become a teacher?
I've always loved to teach movement. I have taught, I think the first teaching kind of fitness I did was step class. And so I've always been in group fitness. Throughout my other career, I taught spinning. I've been teaching spinning since 99. And I have taught, body blast and body sculpt. And boot camp, basically, you name it. I think I've taught it. And so I've always loved teaching. And I used to teach yoga for like runners and things of that nature, though I didn't have a big background in yoga theory and yoga, and I didn't have yoga school or yoga certification. So it was more stretching, but I did pull postures that I knew into it. And then, at one point I was like, okay, we need to up this.
And where was your 200-hour teacher training?
It was actually online, Ayurvedic yoga school. And it was interesting because at the time I wanted to do teacher training. Of course, I drooled over all these exotic places to go to, but I had a young son and I was kind of a single mom. I had, help, but I really couldn't leave for 3 weeks. And I joined online for a 200-hour teacher training. And then I knew I was going to do the 300 to get my 500. And when that happened, it was right around when COVID hit. It was a little bit before, but and then I thought I was the only one in the world who was doing online teacher training. And I was, at first I didn't feel so great about it. I really wanted the in-person experience. And then everybody was doing online teacher training. So it was great. I don't know. I don't have another experience of that other than I have gone to a lot of workshops and other certifications in person with Travis Elliott and doing restorative and yin practices and certifications of that nature. So
Nice. And you also went on to do your 300. Was it with the same school?
It was. Yeah.
Okay. And how long did it take for you to complete the 200 and the 300?
Oh my goodness. It was sort of self-driven. So I don't know if there was I want to say within the year. I mean, with a kid and other business and daily stuff like that. And I wasn't a full-time yoga instructor or anything at that time. So I would say within the year, I just plugged away at it.
Mm-hmm. And you were working already in like a fitness and group class coaching, teaching before you even got your 200. Was that your full-time job before?
No, that wasn't my full-time job. So my parents opened a retail store in Bar Harbor, Maine in the 70s. Yeah, in the 70s. And I worked in the store and then took it over in 2005. So it was a pretty large retail store. We had a lot of different items, jewelry and clothing and optical, and we had knives and camping gear and all this stuff. So that was my main career for a really long time. So it was on the side that I was teaching fitness and yoga and helping people just try to reach their goals.
Is there any transition that happened where you became more focused on that movement and fitness teaching?
Now here's where it gets good. So I absolutely loved working in the store, working with people. I love working with people. I would meet people from all around the world. And so it was right downtown Bar Harbor, Maine, and people loved the store, especially everybody loved the store. And it was great. It was phenomenal. It was wonderful growing up in that, especially seasonal, and then working in the wintertime in different places. I would travel around and work in different places, Colorado and wherever I wanted to go, Florida and things like that. Towards the end, right before COVID, a few years before, I was not super happy anymore doing what I was doing. It wasn't my dream, though it was lucrative and wonderful. And there was a lot of great things about it. I knew that I wanted to do something else. And I had hurt my back. I slipped on the ice and hurt my back. So I was doing a lot of meditation. And the only thing I could do, even though it still hurt my back in some ways, was yoga and swimming. So I was doing yoga and swimming. And I was sitting a lot, kind of palms up and asking the universe, what's going on? What's going on? I was never a meditation guru or anything, but I was trying my best, and I meditated and I sat and I breathed. And this is a true story. I was taking my son and his girlfriend to the movies. I think they were in 8th grade at the time. And I had thought about it for years and years, like what I was going to do. And I was driving them down to the movies, and I can't say, I heard a voice in my head. I heard something say, you got to do it right now. It was like a lightning bolt. And you have to understand, like, this is a lifetime family business. My parents own the building. If people love this store, they come back year after year, and I'm not really sure what I'm doing. So I go to the hardware store and I buy for rent signs, and I put some information on the building, like has 2 bathrooms, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I stick them up in the window. And I made a little video for Facebook. And then I left the building. It was like Elvis left the building. My phone just ringed off the ringer. I was on a dog walk. I didn't even know what to do. I just shut my phone off because I didn't have the answers for all the questions that people were going to ask me. So, like, what was the rent and how about to do? And I didn't really even know what to do. So I got it together. And it was my parents' building too. So if we were going to rent it out or things like that. But what really happened is, long story short, is that the building sold within 3 months. Yeah, 3 months. And I was out of a job. I knew I wanted to be in movement for sure. I knew I wanted to be in yoga, and I wanted to help people with their health and wellness. And it was done. So careful what you wish for, because poof, it was over and on to the next journey. So that's what really happened. And then I took on a lot of opportunities that came my way, kind of as the yes girl, like, yes, okay, let's try that. Oh, let's go over here, and funneled my way. I'm still funneling. I think still funneling what works and what doesn't. And unless you have a brick and mortar studio and you're in one place, even then, sort of getting rid of what doesn't work and taking in what does, and then knowing your boundaries. So
I think I can relate to, like, I think we're all still figuring it out, like what works, what doesn't, what's my niche, and what's the population I want to work with, or do I want to do private more, or group, or corporate? And I think our teachings are always evolving as well. So of course the service we offer are always evolving too. And I think it's good to have kind of that, not such a set mindset on like what it needs to be. And because as a yoga teachers, or even just any movement modality teachers, it's always changing. We're always evolving. We're evolving. The information's evolving. And yeah, we just have to be so open to it. So when you decided that you let go of your family business and decided you wanted to kind of focus on yoga, group classes, fitness, what was the transition like from the very beginning till like, okay, now I'm sustainable. My business is sustainable, that I have enough clients, or I have enough job or places to work. Can you share with us that journey of transition?
I would say, don't give up. Like I say, if you're doing something, kind of being the yes person, if you have a niche and that's what you're doing, and you want to work with women with osteoporosis, or that's exactly what you do, then that's great. I do think it's always evolving. A lot of times those things kind of ebb and flow out of popularity. So yeah, when I started, I wanted to do yoga. Luckily for us, we have a lot of hotels around here. So I was and I did work with some wellness places. So they would send me out to hotels. I made a brochure. I did pay for brochures to be put around for like private, a lot of people on vacation here. It depends on what, area you live in. Like the area here, we don't have a lot of corporate, and we don't have a lot of studios. So, I think you have to decide like what's around you and what's available, and sort of go in that direction, and what you're interested in. And there was tough times. I definitely would have classes and show up, and there would be maybe one person or maybe no people, and that can be disheartening sometimes but when that one person shows up and you can really have a one-on-one, you can better your practice, and you can really almost enlighten yourself to really get to know this person, what their ailments are or how they move. So take that as a learning experience always. And it does, you do have to kind of put yourself out there, and one person tells someone else and blah, blah, blah. And that's how your classes grow. But it can be ebb and flow, especially in the beginning, if you need to subsidize with some other, part-time job, or keeping something while you're training. I believe I heard once, it was like, if you want to become a yoga instructor, the best thing to do is keep your job, get certified, and maybe get a class or two here and there, or do some subbing, and then, work your way. You don't always just quit everything you're doing and then be like from ground zero. So, trickle in a little bit and see what's going on before you put both feet in, for some people. So it was tough in the beginning. There were definitely moments where I'd look at my husband and say, I don't know if this is going to work out. And he'd say, you're awesome. That's why I married him. He'd say, you're great. Hang in there. You just be you and it'll happen. So I did have support. Sometimes it would go down, not downhill, but you would take a little roller coaster down, be like, oh, and then vroom, the opportunity would come and shoot you up to the top.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, I agree. What was your family, your husband, your parents, like your peers, your friends, what was their reaction when you decided to kind of really pivot your career path?
Shock. Not my husband. My husband knew it was coming. My parents were on board. They understood. It was, like I said, it was their building and they created that business. That was one of my fears, that they'd be really disappointed. But they were super supportive in that and understanding. My friends were definitely in shock when they saw the Facebook post about, here's my rent sign and I'm out. And, but everybody that I knew, especially my close friends, just knew that that's what I have always been drawn to, and that I'm good at, as I'm told, and that I love to do. I wake up every morning just so enthused to go to work.
Yes, I think it's not everyone who can say that they love their job. They love what they do every day. They are excited to go to work, or it doesn't feel like work, Sometimes it does,
Yeah.
but I feel like there's, even though, like, for me too, I love teaching yoga, and there's a lot of like admin side of my own yoga business that I have to work on my computer quite a bit. And, I love teaching more than doing that kind of admin work, but still, like, I still to this day tell people I love my job. I love what I do, and I can't imagine doing anything else. And I think that's something so special that not everyone can say. So I think I'm glad that your friends, your family can see that, and they knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said there aren't a lot of studios around where you live, but you really have to like go out there and knock on doors. So how did you find teaching opportunities for you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we have a lot of hotels and a lot of visitors. So there is that side that you need, kind of social media, or a rack card, as we call it here. They have, big areas where everybody has a little information card that they put in, that you come in, you can go sailing and you can see whales. And then there's me, BH Yoga Dog. You can do yoga on the beach or at your rental house or wherever. I used to go. I mean, I remember one family hired me, and it was a husband and wife, and they had 3 young girls. And it was my first year. And I was like, and so they wanted to do yoga around the pool, and it was going to be the whole family. And so the young girls, it's great because it takes you out of your box too. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like how am I gonna, we got young kids and we got a husband and wife, and who's this? And it makes you be creative, because I had them do like partner yoga, and some of it was kids orientated and some of it was adult. So it makes you think out of the box. But I do think you have to put yourself out there on social media, whether that's Instagram or Facebook or rack cards or posters. Something on your car. I drive around. I have one of those things on my car that says, BHY, and that BHYD studio, personal training, yoga, fitness, wellness. People take a picture of it. Sometimes I put a little poster that I've made, a laminated poster, in the window of my car if I'm doing yoga on the beach, with my phone number and my information. And I'll ask people, how'd you find me? And they'll say, oh, I saw your car and I took a picture.
Those are such a great advice. Yeah. To get yourself out there. But I love the idea of putting stuff on your cars. And since you live in a place where a lot of visitors are coming, it's a tourist, or, people come seasonally. Do you have a lot of, not a lot, but do you have any repeating customers who come back every year?
Oh yeah. Yeah, okay. Definitely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. People come and they rent houses, and, year after year, they may go to the same house and call me. I also have repeated customers that come for the summer, mm-hmm. and they're here through 4 months or whatever, maybe 3-4 months. They always let me, I might touch base with them, or they touch base with me. And then we set up a schedule, whatever kind of training they want, or private yoga. Yeah, definitely people come into classes, return customers or return students that come to classes through the island. Yeah.
And so do you have more like busy season where you have a lot more work, and then maybe more slower season because of where you live?
Definitely. The summer season is definitely busier. Trying to get up and out like by 6 a.m. because I personal train too and do corrective exercise. So yes, other than teaching yoga, I do a few other things. So in the wintertime, it is a little bit quieter. but that gives you an opportunity in a way to work on the backside of your business, as in like promotions and content. And do you want to write an ebook? Do you want to, design other classes? Because a lot of times in the summertime, I just don't have time for that at all. Making videos. I have a YouTube channel. So in the wintertime, I may have more time to make videos.
Yeah, yeah.
And the summer is just a lot busier.
Yeah. I'm curious to know what your typical week looks like with all the different modalities that you teach, different like private and group setting, or, different location you go to. So kind of give us a rundown of typical week for your work week.
Typical work week for me is that I have a small studio in my house. So I have about 3 clients that come over 2 to 3 times a week. And it is a puzzle piece together adventure because I work all over the island. So we have 3 major towns, and, each town is about 20 minutes away from one another. So depending on traffic, but it's not anything major. So I really have to decide, who's where and what day, because I don't want to pinball back and forth too much and lose time and money in between just driving. So my morning usually consists of early studio work at my house. And then I teach classes at the YMCA in Bar Harbor here. So, and a few days a week, or at least one day a week, actually one day a week, there's classes that are stacked up. There's 3 classes that are stacked back to back. And those are quite busy. So that's a beautiful thing. And that's after a few years, or really, like I said, sometimes I'd show up and there'd be no one or one. And now those classes are full. So, and sometimes they have to sign up, and that it just makes you, feel good. And then I will see private clients. I go to people's houses, depending on the town or where I am before. And I have a hotel that I teach yoga every day at 9 a.m. at the Claremont Hotel in Southwest Harbor in the summertime. So shout out to them. It's a beautiful place. If you want to take a look at that, it's lovely. And we have yoga. Yoga's included every day at 9. I'll see private clients throughout the day. And then I have an evening class on the other side of the island in Southwest. But I don't really like to teach in the afternoon. When I first started, just thinking about that, making your boundaries, is because when I first started, like I said, I was the yes girl. I was like, yes, 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 yes. And literally, I think I was working from like 7:30 in the morning till 7:00 at night, even though a lot, half of that might have even been driving from place to place. And so I really needed to think about how I was putting that together, how I was putting that puzzle together, and where I could limit the driving and maximize the income. So it's always a little bit of a shuffle and a thought process. Some days like this week, it seems interesting. Some days, some weeks, it seems like everybody can't make it this one certain week. I don't know if people are tired or if it's transition. And then it's just, like I said, the roller coaster goes up. So it's definitely gotten busier and busier and busier.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And you said boundary. And I think that's something that comes up a lot as a full-time yoga teacher, or, any full-time, maybe independent contractor, because like you said, in the beginning, you want to say yes to everything. You want to say yes to all the sub opportunities, even if the cost, the pay is low, you still want to say yes. You just want more exposure, gain more experience. But then there comes a point in your teaching. It's like, okay, now I need to prioritize. Like, what do I say yes to? What do I say no to? Tell me a little bit about, do you have your your journey of your boundary, but also do you have any non-negotiable as a teacher right now?
Well, the biggest non-negotiable is any kind of sexual harassment. So any kind of weird feeling, even with personal training, which I think I've only had really one. Yeah. And that's non-negotiable. Like, you need to just, and luckily for me, it was on Zoom. So I just closed the lid, it's like, boop, we're done. That's a non-negotiable. And if you feel awkward in any way, or you don't feel safe in any way at any time, even if you say, I'll be right back, I'm going to the bathroom, and then you don't ever come back, like just do that. Whatever way you want to leave a situation that you don't feel comfortable with, that's a non-negotiable. And then never go back no matter what it is. Like if you don't feel comfortable, even if they're like, oh, I was yada yada, you're like, no, no. Someone, I haven't really experienced this, but I would say someone who just, or a company that just doesn't pay you, like they're going to, or they make different rules. Like I worked for someone once, and I worked for her for years, but it was like, well, we're going to pay you this amount. Oh, we're not getting that many students. We're going to pay you half of that amount. Well, if no one shows up, we're not going to pay you at all. So I think it's non-negotiable that your time is worthy, whether you don't own the studio. So you're still showing up. And I always said, well, when I owned a jewelry store, just because I didn't sell any jewelry doesn't mean I wouldn't pay the salespeople. So, you have to have a limit. There's a place for volunteer work for sure. And there's a place of grace when you have maybe a constant or a consistent client who is always there, and then maybe they're late or they forgot or things like that you can give grace to. But someone who might do that constantly, you want to rethink that relationship. Yeah, just anything that makes you feel really uncomfortable or not good about what you're doing, that would be a serious, non-negotiable boundary.
Yeah. Do you have any day of the week that you make sure it's your day off, or do you work every day? Or do you have boundary around that?
Yeah, I don't work weekends. I worked weekends my whole life. I'm 54, so that's how old I am. I'm 54, and I worked every weekend, I think, of my whole life, basically, other than special occasions or when I was racing, or so sometimes races were on the weekends. But I decided unless it was something super major, amazing, a big private party or a special event that I wanted to be hired for, that I was not available Saturday or Sunday. So that's when my husband was off also. And I never had that opportunity before. Being in retail, it was 7 days a week.
Yeah, I have a respect for teachers who really have okay, I don't work after this time, or after 7 p.m. or 5 p.m., or I don't work on Saturday or Sunday, or having 1 or 2 days off in a week. I think it's so important. That's a boundary that I have a hard time. Yes, I have a hard time creating days off when I live in LA. Right now, I live in Peru, so I do have a little bit more time off, which is nice. But that's something I do want to incorporate when I go back, for sure.
When you have a lot of opportunity, it does make it really tough. And I think when you are beginning and starting out, like I'm saying, kind of being the yes person, that might be okay, but you will find your limit. I think you'll find that, and you'll just pay attention to I don't really want to do that in the afternoon. I'm tired, or this class is it's not where I want to be. Yeah, making a little time for yourself, but discovering that is part of the journey also.
Yeah, that is very true. Because in the beginning, I do encourage newer teachers to say yes to more than just say yes. So you can learn, you can gain experience, you get to know more people, you have more exposure. But yes, definitely there'll be a time where you have to start saying no, so you can really prioritize what matters, who you like to teach, what location you really enjoy teaching at, and make sure you're choosing the one that pays well and all of those things. So I definitely agree with that. What was the most number of classes or privates combined that you were teaching per week in your teaching career, and where are you at now?
Oh my goodness, I got to add that. Privates and classes.
Per week.
Where am I at now? I have to count them up. So as for me, teaching yoga, I teach fitness and corrective exercise and personal training. So I'm a certified personal trainer. I'm certified in all those things. But so let's say 8 times, somewhere between, I would averagely 25 sessions a week, just off the top of my head, with travel in between. I'd have to look at my schedule, but it does ebb and flow sometimes. I have couples that sometimes work out together. Like today, I have an older couple, and they move together, and then I have other couples that go back to back. So they don't want to work out together. But it's definitely full time. A lot of times I'm up and out by 6:30 and then hopefully home by 4.
So you have a very busy teaching schedule.
Yes. Yeah. And some days when I don't have anyone for the afternoon, I go, wow, yay.
Yeah. And what do you think is your like ratio of different modalities that you teach? Because I know you do yoga and personal training and corrective exercises. So what's how are they ratioed out in your teaching career?
Honestly, right now, I think about 30, 30, 30. 33, 33, 30. It really is about 1/3 a piece. When people come to yoga class, they will, since I am quite knowledgeable in anatomy. Don't test me though, because I'm up on the spot. I'm like, oh my God. But they like the fact that I'm knowledgeable. And that's a learning process too. Like, I just want to side note there. Like, if you don't know everything, that's okay. Just be authentic. Go in there and say, I don't know, but I'm going to look it up. Like, people really appreciate that. If you don't know everything, just bring into your class what you do know, and then be like, that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll look into that for next class. But they'll come to class and then they'll say, oh, you personal train. I would like to build some strength with weights. And then we'll move on to that. And I'll be like, all right, let's do that. Or they say, oh, I have a hip problem or a shoulder problem, and I see you're in corrective exercise. Or I may say to everybody, if you need anything else with movement, I do these things. And then people are like, wait, I'm interested.
So they cross over quite a bit.
They do. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. And considering the pandemic, how did the pandemic affect your business? How did it affect it? And also, now that we're out of it, how has your business maybe shifted from what it was before?
I don't know anything else. When we did have the pandemic, because that's exactly when the whole thing was, when I sold, or when I walked away from retail, and that whole happened so quickly. I was actually away when we signed the papers to sell the building. And my friend and I were away in Arizona for a race, and the pandemic hit, and we didn't even know if we were going to get a plane ride home. Like, we didn't know if schools were shutting down. It was crazy. We didn't know. We thought we were going to have to rent a car. And that's when it happened. So I literally sold my business 3 days before the pandemic came out. And being in the business, or coming back to saying, okay, I'm going to start this yoga, personal training or movement business, I didn't know anything else. I was going to get creative. So there was a lot of Zoom. So I actually created, and it wasn't hugely monetarily successful, but it did give me a lot of experience. That I created a Zoom gym, basically, where it was like $100 a month that you could join. And I would teach from my house, live Zoom classes, 2 or 3 times a day. So some of them were yoga and some of them were fitness. And I did have people that signed up, but it wasn't wasn't gangbusters by any means. But I was there and I got a lot of practice in, and I, had some people with maybe 2 people on there, but we would move. And I learned a lot in the pandemic about Zoom and doing things that weren't traditional. And when it did start to open up again, it was like a nice door opened. But what was so great is that I had Zoom people from out of town, and that I still Zoom with them, So offering, meeting somebody or teaching classes, if you do Zoom, meeting someone in person or teaching classes, and offering the fact that you could Zoom privately, doing privates on Zoom, or even a group class. My mentor does group classes on Zoom every Tuesday and Sunday. And he's got people from all over the world. So it's there.
Yeah, so true. That whole online Zoom thing has really opened up a lot of opportunities and options for yoga teachers and other, movement modality fitness teachers too. And I think for me too, I started my online yoga studio during the pandemic, and I wasn't sure if it will continue after everything opened back up, because I thought people were going to want to go back to their in-person studios and gyms. And, at the peak during the pandemic, I had more members, but now I have very steady group of very dedicated students that are, continuing to want to be part of this online studio. So it has continued ever since. So it's been like 4 years. And that's also beautiful. And now, people from different states and different part of the world can come join. So it's still going, which I'm very happy and grateful for, and also very proud of, to really staying consistent and keep showing up. And it also opens up a lot of opportunity for me, because when I'm traveling, or right now I'm in Peru, I got a job to teach a teacher training in Peru, but I can continue teaching online, and I can still have other streams of income because of my online studio. So I love that you also offer online offerings, and it's perfect for like some people who come there for a season or a vacation once a year, and they meet you and they want to continue working with you. And now that you can still offer like private or one-on-one on your online through Zoom. So I think that's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And in saying that, it just makes me think of, and you said the word, and before we were talking, the word hustle, and I had someone I was working with. She's like, I don't want to hustle. And I thought, I do. I want all the hustle. No, I mean, and I think the word hustle is like, you got to put yourself out there, and you got to be your own cheerleader. And so when I teach classes, of course, when you're an artist, you don't want to promote yourself. You've made a painting and you don't want to sell it. And sometimes it's like that in your class, but you really need to tell your students or your people that you offer that, because all of a sudden they're like, I didn't know. So no matter if you want to make a little poster and put it up, or say to everybody at the end of class, if you're interested in Zoom classes, I'm here for you. If you want more information about what else I offer, you can sign up email list. Hello. I got you got to start that email list. Just when people come in, can you sign in? And if you'd like to leave your email, please do.
Yeah. So. Oh my God. I could talk a lot about email lists, but I wanted to say, about the hustle culture. I think I use that word because it is still a thing, and maybe it's slightly changing now, of like people saying like, no, I don't want to be part of this hustle culture. But I use that word because during the time that I was really just saying yes, 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 and trying to make it as a full-time teacher, I can't imagine any other word to explain, but I was hustling. I was working so hard, and I was teaching so many classes. And I think I'm at the point where, okay, I don't want to go back to that point. Like, I want to find nice balance of choosing to work where I want to work and where I want to invest my time and energy into. So I don't want to go back to that hustling part of my teaching career, but I had to go through that to be where I am today. So I don't want to promote hustle culture, but I also think that in my experience, I had to go through that to be where I am in my teaching career.
I'm from Maine. I didn't know it was a culture. I'm just saying, I think that what I meant was, you got to put yourself out there. You have to let people know what you do. You got to just advertise yourself or be your own little cheerleader, because that's how you get more work. And after a while, you're saying yes, yes, yes. Okay, okay, okay. It is nice to say, I'm not really interested in that. Yes, I am interested in this. And it is nice that people, if you're consistent and you're authentic and you're true, they will come to you. Mm-hmm. They will seek you out. They will say, I heard of you. I hear you're great. I would love to hire you. I've been asked to teach classes. I've been asked to come to places. And that's a great feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I completely agree. Another question I have is that, if necessary, could you fully support yourself financially from this business you created for yourself?
Man, oh man. Yes, except my son's in college. So I did, after you do your taxes and stuff, I was like, wow, I made good money. But it depends on what's happening in your life. So it was like, I had a great year. This is my 4th season. So it might take a little longer than that. And you may have to keep, like I say, a little job on a job on the side. But I built up, and I've had some great seasons, especially last season. And I feel like this season is good too. I say season because it is busier in the summer or this year, but it depends on what's going on with life. How much money do you owe? Things like that. So yes, it's just, I'm glad. I'm definitely prioritizing where my money's going right now because I do want my son to be in college and get an education. And, not that to say that he's not getting a job and helping because he is, but it's tough. I don't want him to have $1 million loan. So yes, it's doable.
Yes. And I appreciate your honest answer to that because it is a whole, like I can say I can, support myself, but I also don't have a children, I don't have anybody else I have to support. So definitely a whole different story when you have somebody that you're supporting, putting them through college and all of that. But I really do appreciate your honest answer.
I think it really depends. Do you have a mortgage? Do you have a car payment? Like how much money do you spend? How much money do you need? How much money do you need to make to support yourself? So I think that can vacillate, or it's an individual thing. Like you're saying, how many children do you have?
Mm-hmm.
What does your spouse do? Or do you not have a spouse? Yeah, you really have to think about it.
Yeah, for sure. So looking back at your journey of, becoming a full-time yoga teacher, as well as other fitness teaching that you do, what are some key pieces of advice that you wish someone had shared with you earlier in your career?
Follow your dream, even if you have to work that other job for a while, that's going to come to you. So keep that in your back pocket. Even like we said, go out, teach those classes, sub those classes, keep your foot in the door to think about the future of what you want to do. I don't know, you just have to follow your dream. Like I said, be authentic. Maybe that was one of them, is to be authentic. Because when I first started teaching yoga, that wasn't yoga for runners. That wasn't an athletic, because I have quite an athletic background. When it wasn't an athletic endeavor of either stretching or strengthening for a certain athletic event, I thought I need to be more yogic. I thought I needed to wear more yogic style clothing, and I was like, I don't know if I'm, yogi enough because I'm kind of sporty. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to be sporty yogi. And people love that. They just love when you're yourself, when you bring that in and say, this is what I do. And this is how I am. So I hope you enjoy it. And people love that a lot more than being something you're not.
Yeah, I think that you touch on such a great topic with that, because I think there is this like image of what yogi look like or act like or should be eating like, or, or should dress like. And it's not authentic if you try to be somebody else that you're not. And when you're teaching, I think being really authentic, that authenticity is what people are drawn to. So it's so important to be authentic yourself when you're teaching, and not try to fit into this box that maybe you feel like you have to fit into as a yoga teacher. It's so true.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes a little time to find that, and even maybe full circle. Like you could try on all sorts of hats. Like don't be afraid to try on hats and be like, what about that? And then be like, not really. That's not me,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, such a great advice.
You'll draw those people when you're authentic. You'll draw those people in that respond to you better, and instead of being something you're not. And you'll find I don't want to say your tribe. If you're friendly with everybody and treat everybody kindly, of course, I think more people will come. First of all, but you'll draw the people who are drawn to you, and that's the people that you want to be around for sure.
Yeah, beautifully said. And what aspects of being a full-time yoga teacher do you love the most, and what do you find it most challenging?
What do I love the most? I love it all. I mean, I love at the end of class, this might sound weird. I love at the end of class when people clap. And that's not because it makes me feel good, but it's because I know that they enjoyed themselves. I know that they must feel really good, if not amazing, if it makes them smile and clap. So I love when people tell me they feel better. I love when they just keep coming back and they say, I just appreciate your class. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for what you offer. It makes a difference. I like to hear that from them, to see the smiles on their faces, that they are enjoying it. That's what I really love. I was just made to move too. I was just made to move and not sit at a desk for sure. I would lose my mind. And just the freedom of it, the different places it takes you, the different people that you meet. And even just thinking about the future, and I hope I'm doing the best thing for my body to make it run smoothly as long as it can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So beautifully said. Another thing I want to ask is that because you have your own business, you don't really work for other studios or gyms, or you kind of have your own business that you go to other places, have contract with them, and you have your own private businesses. Do you have any business advice for yoga teachers who are still figuring out how to be their own business? Because I feel like there's a switch. Like sometimes when I first started teaching yoga, I definitely didn't see myself as my own business. Like I was just like, oh, I just work for these studios and this studios and this studios. But there was definitely a switch in my head. It's like, no, like this is my business and I'm the business owner, and I have to like think about it more like a business in a very, ethical way for me, and still want to run a business in a way that feels in alignment with me. But yeah, any business advice for yoga teachers?
As business advice, what I found was, being an independent contractor, different places, including hotels, private clients, gyms, YMCAs, all these different places, they have different ways that they will run their business. But a lot of times, if you decide and you say to them, I'm an independent contractor, this is what I do, so I don't want to be on your payroll, they might say, oh, you have to be my employee. And if it's best, I think, that you stay an independent contractor. That's just my experience, that you're not a one employee of some place and then an independent contractor in others, to stay an independent contractor. Different places have different ways they definitely have their business, and you can experiment with that and then decide what is best for you. And also your boundaries of, are you going to, if they offer like monthly payments or biweekly payments or weekly payments, like how that looks for you. Are you going to go into a place and say, I get paid weekly? Or are you going to let them decide when they pay you? So that's a negotiation, how you want to keep your books. I'm pretty flexible if I find that people are paying me when they say they're going to. So some places I will have them pay me monthly, and some places, depending if they're private clients, how that looks. And that's a whole nother subject on private client paying. Like, you gotta funnel that down and know your worth and stand your ground, because people will be like, oh yeah, I'll get to you later. So whether you're gonna get paid up front and how that looks, because you don't want to be like hounding them to pay you after you've, done 2 or 3 private sessions with them. QuickBooks, keeping track of what you have done. How are you going to keep track of a different bank account? Sometimes that's helpful for me. I have a different bank account for all my business deposits than my personal deposits. And that's helpful for me at the end of the year. As far as bank statements go, I have my own credit card for my business. It's completely separate than for my personal. I also have a tracker on my car that tracks the mileage that I use. I use my business card for my gas, things like that. So what you can write off, and getting to know that. Don't feel bad if you spend the first year or 2 or even 3. That's a lot to ingest on what is a write-off and what is not, and what that percentage, and even talking to an accountant about that, even for information before you just kind of go on TurboTax and plug everything in or whatever it may be, to get some advice on what that looks like. Because you can write off like a portion of a studio or your house, or, there's different write-offs that you really want to take advantage of if you're going to own your own business. And how you get paid, keeping track of that. How do you keep track of your classes? How many people were in it? Maybe it's, by person. Like if I go to a studio and they pay me a certain amount and then $5 each extra person, or whatever it may be, like where you're going to keep that log. So, when you send your invoice, what you did. You do have to be kind of organized. Sorry.
No, I love all that you shared. I haven't really asked so much business side of the questions on this podcast, and I love everything that you shared, and it makes me feel like I probably should ask more questions like this, because everything you said, I completely agree, and I do most of those things that you said. But I think this is also something that really we're not openly talking about as a yoga teachers. And I think everything you said, I think will really help the listeners with.
You could do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah.
So I was in business before, owning my own store, which was similar but different in a way. And so I do have experience in that. And it's still, it's still a challenge, kind of funneling down, experimenting with things and saying, well, that's not working. I'm going to go to that. I'm going to go to this. I think it was Stripe, and I had an app that created like this calendar and people could sign in. And honestly, it was just way too confusing. So just experiment. And when it's not working, don't feel bad about it. Just get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I love everything you shared. I think that's so great. Well, maybe I do have a question, because you were running your, shop before too. So as an independent contractor or people who just are running their own business, do you have any advice for how we could be saving for retirement? Because we don't have a job that gives us 401k or even insurance. And, we kind of all have to figure that on our own. So do you have any advice for yoga teachers in that?
Buy property. No, I mean, it's not a bad idea. Invest in something. I don't know anything about stocks and bonds and all that kind of thing. And I don't like the, quotation fingers, play the market or anything like that. I'm not that savvy. Buying a piece of property that you can call your own, I think is a pretty darn good idea, especially if it's in a place that has good resale also. Maybe there's a little house, or maybe it's an apartment that has another apartment that you can rent out. I mean, something that you're making money and you want to put it somewhere. IRA, that's if you just want to put it in the bank and you don't want to have property, and start an IRA and put that in there for your retirement. You can just put in what you can every year. I mean, if you could just do a bank account and put money in, let's say a couple $100 a month or something like that, or even $100 a month, especially if you're going to have a kid and they're going to go to college. Holy moly, start saving now. But yeah, bank account or an IRA, or invest. Don't buy an RV because they don't hold the value. Something that you could even, if you can afford to buy a piece of property and even to rent it after that, something that will generate some kind of income. So that's my advice.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. So a couple more questions before we wrap up. But what does success mean to you as a full-time yoga teacher?
Success means making enough money to pay your bills, have time with your family, and rest when you need. That is success, to have that balance. I'm not, don't need Maserati. I don't need a Maserati, even though, or anything super special, but to pay my bills, to have time with my family, a vacation, and even saying like, I'm going to take this whole week off because I'm exhausted, or I just need a mental health moment, and having enough money to say that that's okay to do. I think that's success.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love what you said. I had this conversation in a previous episode with a yoga teacher who lives out of her van, and she kind of lives a van life, but she teaches only online private yoga. And we talked about, money and income. And I remember she said something like, what's the point if we don't have enough time to enjoy life? And it's so true. Like for me, when I live in LA and just are in this like hustle culture and this grind, it's like, okay, I have to teach more. I have to make more money. I have to, I'm always striving for more and more and more. But then in exchange of like stress and not having enough time to actually rest, like what you said, or not having enough time to spend with your loved ones, then it's like, what's the trade-off, So I really love, it's such a simple answer. And I think it's such a profound and very important what you shared. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I think it is important because I think we forget about that time, that downtime. And even though I live in a different part of the country, it is very busy in the summer and maybe not as intense, but we forget and we just get on this kind of train. And then when we get off the train for a moment, we kind of forget how to rest. And we don't know why we're upset or angry or hungry or all these things are agitated. And really what you need is a nap.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely relate with rest and not prioritizing that. So yeah, now that I'm in Peru, I am learning to slow down more, and it's okay not to be always working, and it's okay not to be like always like trying to grow my business or make more money or strive for more and more and more. And actually like you actually like just enjoy this moment. So yeah, definitely resonating with what you just shared. And where do you see your teaching going in the future? It can be your goal. I know some people don't really like the word goals. So it could be just like, where do you see your teaching career path going in the future? Where are you headed?
I just want to touch base one more thing about the resting part. That's when beautiful things happen. We know that, right? We need to remind ourselves that even as yoga instructors or just people, that's when the quiet happens. That's when all the good stuff floods in. That's when the ideas come. So
yes, yeah, so true.
As far as my goal, I wrote this down too as I'm looking at it, and I said, I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what my goal is other than to have that success of time and making enough money and feeling that, of course, things are going to happen, but everything's because I'm enjoying this kind of butterfly. I don't have a van, but my butterfly wings traveling around to different places. And so I'm not sure if that will be one day a studio. I would like to do retreats. It sounded like a question, but no, I love to do retreats and plan those, one's in the works, and sort of letting my palms up. Hey, universe, what do you have for me? Guide me a little bit for a while. Just being open to possibilities and seeing what kind of change, because being allowed to change, I think, is the best way to be. Yeah, I just think it's the best way to be, just open for change if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your journey, and also amazing business tips and advice that I feel like the listeners will benefit so much from. And tell the listeners how they can find you and any exciting events, or maybe you said retreat and making, anything that's coming up for you that you want to share, and also how they can find you.
You can find me. Everything I have is BH Yoga Dog. So for Bar Harbor, or my name was Britt Holbert, even though I changed it for my husband, bhyogadog.com is my website. Britt, Britt, at bhyogadog.com is my email. So you can touch base there. I'm on YouTube under BH Yoga Dog and Spotify. So there's playlists, but you can reach out to me on my website or on my email, bhyogadog.com. We're planning a yoga retreat on MDI for the spring of 25. Send me an email. I'll send you some information about it. We'll see what else we're going to do. Kayaking and hiking and a little bit of adventure and a couple yoga classes a day with some beautiful food and some local people to show you around. What else is happening with me? Just here on MDI. So come see me, Zoom with me, hang out, and have some fun.
Well, thank you so much, Britt. I'll make sure to link all of that on the show notes. I really appreciate you taking time to chat with me, and it was really fun. So thank you.
Thank you. It was really fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's interview I had with Britt. I hope you got something out of this conversation and interview. I really liked the business advice and things she shared. I think those things can be very helpful to yoga teachers, and maybe we shy away from talking about those business things. And Britt was not shy at all about speaking about the business side. And she had so much experience in the business side, because before she even became a yoga and movement practitioner, she owned her own store for so long. So I feel like she just knows so much about running a business, which I really appreciated. That is it for me this week. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I really appreciate it if you can share this podcast with your fellow yoga teachers, or leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever you listen to. And again, you can reach me anytime. Instagram at Reika Yoga, or on my website, www.reikayoga.com. See you next week. Bye.